While many people overlook pennies as everyday pocket change, the 1963 and 1994 USA 1 penny coins represent fascinating opportunities for collectors and casual finders alike. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of American history that, under the right circumstances, could be worth far more than their face value suggests. Today, we'll explore what makes these specific years so special, how to identify the valuable specimens, and why they continue to captivate the collecting community decades after their minting. Let's start our journey with the 1963 Lincoln cent, a coin that emerged during a pivotal moment in American history. The early 1960s represented a time of significant transition in the United States, with the Kennedy assassination, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Cold War shaping the national consciousness. Against this backdrop, the humble penny continued to be minted in massive quantities, with over 1.7 billion 1963 pennies produced across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. What most people don't realize is that hidden within this enormous mintage are some remarkable varieties and errors that have made certain 1963 pennies highly sought after by serious collectors. The 1963 Lincoln cent maintained the same design that had been in use since 1909, featuring Victor David Brenner's iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This design continuity means that at first glance, most 1963 pennies appear identical to their counterparts from surrounding years. However, the devil is in the details, and collectors have identified several key features that can transform an ordinary 1-cent piece into a valuable treasure. One of the most notable varieties among 1963 pennies is the double die error, particularly evident on the obverse. This error occurs when the die strikes the coin multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the design elements. On genuine 1963 double die pennies, you can observe distinct doubling on Lincoln's eye, ear, and the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." These errors occurred during the die production process at the Philadelphia Mint and are relatively scarce, making them highly desirable to error coin enthusiasts. Another valuable variety from 1963 is the repunched mintmark error, where the mintmark, D for Denver or S for San Francisco, appears to have been punched into the die twice in slightly different positions. This creates a distinctive shadow or doubling effect on the mintmark, which can be identified with careful examination under magnification. These errors occurred when mint workers had to manually punch mintmarks into the working dies, and sometimes misaligned the second punch. The condition of a 1963 penny plays a crucial role in determining its value, as with most collectible coins. While circulated examples of common 1963 pennies are worth little more than face value, uncirculated specimens can command significant premiums. Coins graded MS-65, mint state 65, or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC are particularly valuable, especially if they exhibit original red copper color rather than the brown tone that develops over time through oxidation. When it comes to current market values, the range for 1963 pennies is quite broad depending on variety and condition. A typical circulated 1963 penny from Philadelphia or Denver might only be worth a few cents above face value. However, a 1963 double die obverse in uncirculated condition could fetch anywhere from $500 to $2,000 or more at auction, depending on the severity of the doubling and the overall grade of the coin. The record price for a 1963 double die cent was set in 2019 when a specimen graded MS-66 read by PCGS sold for an impressive $8,225 at a Heritage Auctions event. For those interested in the 1963 San Francisco pennies, the story is somewhat different. While the San Francisco Mint produced fewer coins in 1963 compared to Philadelphia and Denver, the 1963 pennies are generally more common in high grades than their counterparts from other mints. This is because many 1963 pennies were saved by collectors who noticed the relatively low mintage figures. Nevertheless, gem-quality examples, MS-65 and above, still command premiums, typically ranging from $15 to $50 depending on color designation, red, red-brown, or brown. One fascinating aspect of the 1963 penny is its composition. Like all Lincoln cents minted from 1909 to 1982, with the exception of 1943 steel cents, the 1963 penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This copper composition gives the coin its distinctive weight and feel, which many collectors prefer over the zinc-coated steel cents that would follow in later years. The copper content also means that these coins have an intrinsic metal value that has fluctuated with commodity prices over the years, sometimes exceeding their face value during periods of high copper prices. The historical context of the 1963 penny adds another layer of interest for collectors. These coins were in circulation during some of the most tumultuous events in American history, including the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. Some collectors seek out pennies minted before and after this tragic event as historical markers, creating before and after sets that document this pivotal moment in time. Another interesting fact about the 1963 penny is that it represents one of the last years before significant changes in American coinage would begin. By 1964, the rising price of silver would lead to the removal of silver from dimes and quarters, and by 1982, the composition of the penny itself would change due to the increasing cost of copper. This makes the 1963 penny something of a transitional piece, representing the end of an era in American coinage. When examining a 1963 penny for potential value, collectors should pay close attention to several key factors. First, check for any signs of doubling on the obverse design elements, particularly around Lincoln's portrait and the lettering. Second, examine the mintmark carefully for any signs of repunching or other anomalies. Third, assess the coin's overall condition, looking for wear, scratches, discoloration, or other damage that might affect its grade and value. For those who believe they may have found a valuable 1963 penny, professional authentication and grading are highly recommended. Services like PCGS, NGC, and ANAX can authenticate the coin, verify any varieties or errors, and assign an official grade that will help determine its market value. While there is a cost associated with these services, they can significantly increase the value and marketability of rare or unusual coins. The market for 1963 pennies has remained relatively stable over the years, with consistent demand from Lincoln cent collectors and error coin enthusiasts. While these coins may not have seen the dramatic price increases of some other numismatic items, they continue to be an accessible entry point for new collectors while still offering enough rarity and variety to keep experienced collectors engaged. One of the most appealing aspects of collecting 1963 pennies is the treasure hunt element they provide. With billions of these coins produced and many still in circulation, there's always the possibility that a valuable variety or error could be discovered in pocket change or an old coin collection. This potential for discovery keeps many collectors searching through rolls of pennies and attending coin shows in hopes of finding that special specimen. In conclusion, the 1963 Lincoln cent represents far more than just a humble 1-cent piece. For collectors, it's a window into American history, a challenging puzzle with its varieties and errors, and a potentially valuable addition to a collection. Whether you're an experienced numismatist or someone who just happens to have a jar of old coins, taking a closer look at your 1963 pennies might reveal some surprising treasures hiding in plain sight. Now let's turn our attention to the second coin in our lineup, the 1994 Lincoln cent. At first glance, this seems like one of the most common coins imaginable. Billions were minted, and they turn up in pocket change every single day. But hidden within this massive mintage is a subtle variety that has become a modern classic in the collecting world. Unlike the dramatic doubling of the 1972 penny we just discussed, the valuable 1994 penny requires a much more discerning eye to spot. It's all about a tiny detail on the reverse side that most people would never notice, but which makes all the difference in value. The story of the valuable 1994 penny begins with a design change. In 1993, the U.S. Mint introduced a new reverse design for the Lincoln cent, featuring a slightly modified Lincoln memorial. The key difference was in the spacing between the letters A and M in America. On the vast majority of 1994 cents, these letters are close together, what collectors call the close AM variety. However, a small number of 1994 cents were struck with reverse dies intended for 1993 proof coins, which feature noticeably wider spacing between the A and M, hence the name wide AM. This wasn't technically an error, but rather a mule of sorts, using dies from a different year's production. Identifying a genuine 1994 wide AM penny requires knowing exactly where to look and what to see. You'll need to focus on the reverse of the coin, specifically on the word America above the Lincoln Memorial. On a regular 1994 cent, the A and M are so close they almost touch at the bottom. On the wide AM variety, there's a clear, distinct gap between the two letters. You should be able to see daylight between them. This difference is subtle but definite once you know what you're looking for. The spacing in America should be noticeably wider than the spacing in States or of on the same coin. It's also worth noting that the wide AM variety is only found on business strike cents from the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, not on Denver or San Francisco issues. The discovery of the 1994 wide AM variety is a fascinating tale in itself. It wasn't immediately recognized when the coins were first released. In fact, it took several years for sharp-eyed collectors to notice the difference and realize its significance. The variety was first reported in the late 1990s, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that it gained widespread attention in the collecting community. This delayed recognition meant that many examples had already entered circulation and were mixed in with countless regular cents, making the hunt for them both challenging and exciting. When it comes to market value, the 1994 wide AM penny has seen steady appreciation as collectors have come to understand its true scarcity. In circulated condition, even a well-worn example can fetch $300 to $500, which is remarkable for a coin that's less than 30 years old. The value really escalates with uncirculated specimens. A beautiful red uncirculated example graded MS-65 can sell for $2,000 to $3,000 at auction. The record price for a 1994 wide AM penny was set in 2021 when a spectacular specimen graded MS-67 red by PCGS sold for an impressive $8,400. This sale underscored the premium that top-quality examples command in today's market. What makes the 1994 wide AM particularly intriguing is how it represents a different kind of rarity compared to the 1972 double die. While the 1972 variety is a dramatic error with obvious doubling, the 1994 variety is a subtle design difference that requires knowledge to spot. This makes it a true, collector's coin, valuable not because of an obvious mistake, but because of a small but significant variation that most people would never notice. It's the kind of discovery that rewards careful observation and deep numismatic knowledge. One interesting aspect of the 1994 wide AM story is how it fits into the broader context of Lincoln cent collecting. This variety is part of a small group of wide AM cents that includes the 1992, 1992D, 1998, 1999, and 2000 issues. Each of these has its own level of rarity and value, but the 1994 Philadelphia issue stands out as particularly scarce. Collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cents often try to assemble a complete set of these wide AM varieties, making the 1994 issue a key coin in this challenging subset. Condition plays an absolutely critical role in determining the value of a 1994 wide AM penny. As with many modern coins, the difference between grades can mean thousands of dollars in value. Circulated examples range from $300 to $500 depending on where, with the wide AM spacing still clearly visible. About uncirculated examples, -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, typically bring $600 to $900, showing only the slightest traces of wear. The real value jump comes with mint state examples. An MS-60 to MS-62 coin might sell for $1,000 to $1,500, while an MS-63 to MS-64 example could command $1,800 to $2,500. Premium gems in MS 65 or better can reach $3,000 to $5,000, with the finest known examples approaching that record-setting $8,400 mark. As with the 1972 double die, the color designation significantly impacts value for uncirculated 1994 wide AM cents. Full red, RD, specimens command the highest prices, as they retain their original bright copper color. Red-brown, RB, examples, which show some toning but still have significant original color remaining, typically sell for 20 to 30% less than full red examples. Brown, BN, specimens, which have fully toned to a chocolate brown color, are worth approximately 40 to 50% less than their red counterparts in the same grade. What makes the 1994 wide AM penny especially exciting for collectors is the possibility of finding one in circulation. While the odds are certainly long, estimates suggest only a few thousand examples exist compared to billions of regular 1994 cents, people do occasionally discover these valuable varieties in everyday change. This potential for a life-changing discovery keeps many collectors searching through bank rolls, coin jars, and pocket change, hoping to spot that distinctive wide spacing between the A and M in America. The 1994 wide AM also serves as an excellent example of how the coin market has evolved to embrace modern rarities. Not long ago, a coin from the 1990s would have been considered too recent to have significant numismatic value. Today, collectors recognize that scarcity and demand can create value regardless of a coin's age, as long as it has an interesting story and clear collector appeal. The 1994 wide AM penny embodies this modern approach to numismatics, proving that valuable treasures can indeed come from recent coinage. For those interested in acquiring a 1994 wide AM penny, the market is active but competitive. Lower-grade circulated examples appear occasionally on major auction sites and at coin shows, while higher-grade uncirculated specimens are much harder to find and typically sell quickly when offered. As with any valuable modern variety, authentication is crucial, and most serious collectors will only purchase examples that have been certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. The subtle nature of the variety means that counterfeits and misattributions are possible, making professional certification especially important. Both the 1972 double die and the 1994 wide AM pennies demonstrate that valuable rarities can indeed come from recent, common coinage. These aren't ancient treasures from centuries past, but modern coins that could still be hiding in everyday change. They represent different paths to numismatic value, one through a dramatic minting error, the other through a subtle design variety, but both share the potential to surprise and delight collectors who know what to look for. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who just happens to have a jar of old coins, these two pennies remind us that extraordinary value can sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. The next time you come across a 1972 or 1994 cent, take a closer look. You might just be holding a small fortune in your hand.